John, morning everybody. I'm here from Northumbria University and presenting work that we've done in conjunction with the University of Bath and the University of Newcastle, both in the UK. And the context of this talk and this work really is reality TV. So those of you who watch TV, it won't have passed you by that reality TV is a massive genre. It's incredibly popular, and some of the most popular shows have millions of viewers. And these shows also have a very large social media presence. So within the reality TV genre, you have this great named subgenre, which they call constructed factual TV. So as they kind of give away, it's supposed to be a factual representation of reality, but it's constructed. Dog the Bounty Hunter will be familiar to those of you who've watched US TV. This is an example of constructed factual TV. And they often have a very specific political viewpoint because of the fact that they're manufactured. They have people making production decisions and kind of manipulating what's going on to make it like good, fun TV, right? And they're widely criticized. So what we talk about in the paper is a very kind of specific type of constructed factual TV. And this is what we call poverty porn. So I'm aware that in the US it has a different definition. But the definition that we have in the UK and that we talk about in the paper is that poverty porn is a particular brand of reality TV that seeks to depict people of low socioeconomic status supposedly going about their everyday lives. So what's important to note about poverty porn is that it's produced in a way to accentuate the otherness or the difference of the people who are being portrayed. So two kind of examples that we talk about in the paper are Benefit Street and Skint. So these are shows which pick on people who claim state welfare, a group who are poorly represented on television and are also somewhat marginalized. And there are other examples of programs such as My Big Fat Gypsy Wedding, which studies the traveller community in the UK. Again, another group which is stigmatised, marginalised and poorly represented. Now, these programs are very political and they're used by, say, the right wing to justify things like austerity or methods like this. And they're decried by the left wing for the fact that they're full of inaccuracies, they're manufactured. So there's a lot of stuff going on in kind of politics and discussion around poverty porn. So alongside these programs, there are a lot of social media discussion. So Brooker et al. A couple of years ago at CHI, they looked at the content of the Twitter feeds that accompanied programs like Benefit Street. And really what they found was that the programs themselves catalyze the debate. So they actively put hashtags in the actual program because they want to drive people onto social media to have a discussion. But what Brooker et al. Found was basically this debate is one-dimensional, and it's very negative and it's very attacking of the people in the programs. So this kind of led us to this broad question, is really how can we provoke critical reflection on these types of programs? Because it's clear that there is some reflection, there is a debate going on online, and we don't want to stop that. But what we do want to do is, using some kind of tech, can we maybe increase the dimensionality and the views that are within those Twitter feeds and social media feeds? So we see that second screening is probably a vehicle to do this. This cartoon here kind of depicts what I thought how luxurious my 10-hour flight to CHI was going to be. It wasn't so, but it's a good illustration of what second screening is. It's basically using a primary screen, the TV screen, and a second screen alongside it. So those of us who have smartphones, tablets, laptops, this will be, maybe not on a plane, but this will be a familiar scenario. So you might be just reading emails on your phone or doing something that's not at all related to the program. Or, as Doughty et al. And others in the HCI community have found, people will use stuff like social media as a back channel to talk about the content of the programs. And you also might be, as we're going to hear in the next talk, you might be using something like a companion app that complements what you're watching. So there's some real interesting and useful potential in second screening for getting critical reflection. And Vicari et al. Talk about these two concepts of lean forward and lean back. And kind of from these great stock photos, it's kind of familiar to all of us. Like the people on the left, leaning forward, very much engaged in the program. You're actively paying attention to everything on the screen, decoding it, taking it all in. And we've all been here watching TV on the right-hand side, leaning back, maybe not actually engaging that much with the program, kind of letting the information wash over you. And so we thought, okay, what are the opportunities here? Well, maybe there's opportunities for encoding and decoding the media, the primary media. So we were kind of interested in, could we use something like tagging or social tagging to explore what's going on the primary screen? So we did 2 studies. The first was really about the primary media itself. And we're talking about poverty porn, so we're wanting to find, could we encourage critical reflection on the production techniques themselves? And our second study was about the kind of lean back, looking at social media. How could we reconfigure that experience, maybe to enrich either the broadcast content or support the sharing that goes on around these programs? And I'll talk about the first study, which we've called Spotting Guide. Now, those of you from the UK might recognise these or have ever used these. What these are is spotting guides. This is a particular type, the I Spy guides. They're printed from the 50s. I mean, they're still being made now. And they have quite a strong connection in UK culture. What they are is basically an activity book. So if you've got a 6-year-old going on a train journey, you might give them the book in the middle, and it would give them particular things to look for. So look for bridges, look for different types of train, look for diesels, and this kind of thing. And the idea of these, as you can well imagine, is that instead of your kid leaning back and not being engaged and being quite bored on a 10-hour train journey, you're getting them to lean forward, look out the window and engage with the content outside. So we thought, yeah, okay, this is quite an interesting concept. It has a kind of cultural link. So we thought, could we make a spotting guide for poverty porn? So what we did is we produced spotting guides, and what it is second screening app for your phone. So whilst you're watching one of these reality TV programs, you have a set of categories of things kind of preceded that are known production techniques or things that they focus on. And as the user's watching it, you'll kind of hit, every time you see one of these things, you'll hit plus and kind of record that you've just seen it, and you have a timer. Now, users, we gave them the option that if they notice an interesting pattern that maybe we haven't preceded, they can put that in as well. So it's kind of flexible for what they see themselves. And we ran a set of trials. So we did 2 home viewing sessions with 12 participants. And the first home viewing trial was we sent them away, and they all watched an episode of Benefit Street. And they performed the spotting. And a week later, we then gave them the spotting guide again with no preceded content, and we said, you pick something you think might be interesting to watch. And after each of these home viewing sessions, we brought them back in. We had a focus group where we gathered the data, which we performed qualitative analysis on. And there's way more detail in the paper about our methods and our results. But I just want to pick on 2 kind of interesting things that we found from our trial with the Spotting Guide. There was a great kind of reflection on the process. So kind of humorously, one person was saying, yeah, you've ruined TV viewing for me now because I'm just deconstructing everything. So it's kind of like a little bit of because they were primed to know what to look for, it's almost like a little bit of training. But there is a great tension with this kind of lean forward activity in the attention. So these programs are very fast paced, and participants picked up on that in that, 1 minute you're spotting one thing, then the next second they put something else on, then you have to make another category, and it was very intensive. But all in all, we got some really nice data, and I encourage you to have a look at the paper where it can pick it apart more. But in the interest of time, I'll talk about our second study, because we've rammed 2 studies into a paper for some reason. So this is about reconfiguring social media streams around this type of TV. And as the name suggests, we were kind of inspired by the form of a compass, which might seem obscure, but when you look at the existing work around, say, the content of Twitter streams in relation to reality TV, you find that what Twitter does is it prioritizes the quantity of tweets over the diversity of the opinions and the diversity of the views. So stuff gets kind of buried. There may well be representative information or a wide spectrum of views, but it gets buried. So we thought, okay, if we could maybe find a way to classify that information, maybe by its morality, could we then revisualize it so that actually you can see the whole spectrum of views that are within a Twitter stream as opposed to just a whole long list of unclassified. So we thought, yeah, let's try and build a moral compass for Twitter streams around poverty porn TV. And what we came up with is this kind of two app structure. So the first part of the app is on the left, and this is a tagging interface. So we take a live stream from one of these TV shows. I think here it's Britain's Benefits Tenants, of which there are many type of these shows in the UK. We take one of these Twitter streams and we feed it into the app, so just straight from Twitter, and we ask the user, provide a tag which you think summarizes the morality of that tweet. Now, I use the kind of air quotes there because we were quite happy for users to be very subjective on this, so once they'd added their subjective view of whether a tweet was sick or nice or happy or unfair or mean, those tagged tweets would then be fed to this compass interface on the right. Now I have a very quick little demo that just shows we have the compass wheel. It's on a smartphone, so you can spin it around with your thumb. And what you see underneath is someone's tag and then the tweet associated with that tag. So there can be multiple tweets per tag. And the idea is that you can use the compass interface to explore, not linearly, but you can explore by the views that are within this Twitter stream. Similarly to Spotting Guide, we ran 2 home viewing sessions. The first one was kind of just a training exercise. We all gave them the tagging interface. We gave them a live Twitter stream and got them to tag and get used to this process of tagging. The second session, we then all scheduled them to watch the same live TV show, but we randomly paired them up anonymously, where one person was the tagger and the other person was exploring their tagged tweets. And again, we ran focus groups afterwards, analysed the data. And in the interest of time, I'll just pick on 2 which I think were kind of interesting that came out of it. So we had kind of a little bit of playfulness and kind of discovery of the information with navigating the compass. So particularly users were kind of reporting that they enjoyed kind of spinning the compass, seeing just new information popping up or seeing stuff or views that they hadn't seen in the Twitter feed. But interestingly, in the one tagger to one explorer mode, we found that there was this process of trust building because people would check out a tweet, so let's say like a mean tweet, and see what their tagger had tagged it as. If in this example, there's participants saying, yeah, if they tagged a mean tweet as funny, I think they're pretty twisted, and so they wouldn't maybe trust them, and it would affect the way that they were viewing the content. So, what did we learn? 2 kind of big take-homes for us with designing for reflection for second screening is around this concept of design friction. So this is put forward by Korn and Voida, and we talk about it in quite some detail at the end of the paper. So this is where you design something that requires non-passive engagement. So the kind of idea that if interactions and these designs are too easy to use, too seamless and don't require much engagement, then what you'll get is not very good critical reflection because people won't be encouraged to interact at all. So if we make activities that are kind of lean forward, they require a bit of cognitive load, you have to kind of pay attention, then we kind of get the quality of the critical reflection and the quantity is kind of a bit better. But the big caveat to that is that it's really intense, and so you need moments of lean forward because you get great critical reflection there, but you also need lean back. So sometimes this is facilitated by the programs themselves. So if they've got, say, ad breaks in them, participants were reporting the ad break is a real great moment that they could just go, oh my God, this stopped. I can relax, or I can read my data, and kind of chill out before the program came back on, and they had another kind of intense 15 minutes. So it's kind of a balance in the design. And when you're having kind of open sharing of differing viewpoints, we found it was really important to kind of preserve the divergent viewpoints within it. There is kind of a tension there with self-censure. So we were asking people to reflect quite openly on programs which are very political. And you find that people will say, well, I know that other people are going to see this, so maybe I won't be as vitriolic or as passionate as I want to be. Maybe I'll be a bit more diplomatic. And we particularly had that with the tagging interface. And when you present any kind of filter, which effectively, this is what we found, is that the compass acts like a filter. And some users were saying, oh yeah, I knew the mean tweets were on the left, so I just didn't go over there because I didn't want to see them. So quite a key take-home from that is about nudging and kind of saying, okay, we're not going to force users to look at that content, but we need to maybe find a way that we can say, that content's over there, you should look at it, and if you don't want to look at it, you should reflect on why you don't want to look at it. There is a kind of open question with a lot of second screening stuff, particularly around in the wild trials. So we found it really hard to schedule 15 people all to watch the same program, all to actually use the thing. So it's kind of an open question. It's something that we're, as a community, are still working towards. And so it's really cool to see that the paper from our colleagues at Dundee are doing some kind of co-viewing. So I think with that, I'll say thank you to my co-authors and my participants, and thanks for listening.
Hi, Nick Taylor from the University of Dundee. I was interested in the user-generated categories in the spotting guide, which seemed like a really easy avenue to kind of reinforce negative stereotypes. Say you've seen an overweight person eating junk food or something like that. Mm-hmm. And you talked about this a little bit, self-censorship, especially in relation to the second prototype. But I wondered if you could talk a bit more about how that played out in the study itself.
Yeah, so in the first study, spotting guide, the way it was designed is that it was solely the data wasn't shared, but the participants knew that we were going to kind of talk through their data at the focus groups. So I think it's kind of a good question around, as you say, if people are maybe spotting something that is negative, it can act to kind of reinforce that. And that's an open question. So because in this case, we didn't really deploy it in the wild. It was quite a controlled study. And so, you have this problem that if it was to go into the wild, you need some way to kind of scaffold the use of it, because on its own, being quite blank and, yes, spotting categories is potentially can be problematic. Thanks.
Hi, Kuno Kotzer, University of Stuttgart.
Hi.
Very nice idea. One comment did me make think about, if every user would use your app, do you think that viewers would still watch these kind of shows? Because usually, from the personal feedback I got, when
this kind of design, I think it's kind of a prerequisite, at least at this stage, that the people who use it are kind of already kind of keen to do some kind of critical reflection. Because, in isolation, I think, you can definitely get times where people are just not necessarily interested in reflecting.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
I don't know if it'll be fast.